back to another episode of the Dog Pound. We are now on episode 11, which is very exciting. Today we've got a good friend of mine who happens to be on the Brock women's hockey team and is averaging actually just 1 point, just below 1 point per game this season in the OUA, which does also include a game-winning goal, which is very exciting. And she's also a founder of her own hockey development camp called the MC11. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Maddy Cronkwright. Maddy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Yeah, of course. It's as exciting. You're a second athlete that we've got on the show. I've been lacking with the athletes, but hopefully we can get some more. We can get some Brock people on here. But I do want to dive in a little bit, obviously, into the hockey career. That's probably what you're most passionate about. But let's just kind of first begin with your story. What got you into hockey? Did you just pick it up at a young age? Was it a family thing? What was it about hockey that made you interested in the sport?
Yeah, so my dad put me in skates when I was 2.
Mm,
So I've kind of always been on the ice and stuff, and he's definitely a big part of me picking the sport up. Like he loved it growing up. My grandfather played good hockey. And then yeah, I started in NAPNI with the IP program, which is just like a development program.
mm.
So I think I was 4 when I started, and never kind of looked back from there. My first coach, he has a big part in my passion for hockey. Kind of he kept building me up and telling me to stay out longer, and then he put me in with the older group, and yeah, just kind of pushed me through. So yeah, those 3 people definitely have a huge part of in hockey for me.
Lovely. Well, I mean, I do want to highlight a little bit. So you mentioned that coach. Was this coach that someone that you're still in contact with all the time? Is that someone that, you kind of seen as a mentor for, how you tackle any, life activities, any life challenges? How important was that leadership to you in your progression?
Oh, so important. He's a big member of the community too, where I grew up. So he was always around the rink. So uh, and every winter he'd build a rink for the kids in the neighborhood, and
Mm-hmm.
so he was always there for support and leadership and guidance. He actually unfortunately just passed away recently,
Oh
but
no.
he was yeah he every question that I had I could completely go to him and be open and honest. So yeah, I was super grateful to have him in my life and as a role model, as a leader. So it was really good.
Wow. Well, I'm so sorry, number one, to hear about his passing. Obviously, I think those role models that you do have at a young age as well are huge. They go a long way. I think when I played sports, they went a really long way. And obviously, I'm not sure about yourself. I also had some coaches that I didn't really resonate with, and that's okay. I think that's something that it teaches you down the road that you may not also resonate with certain individuals and certain coaches as well. Did you ever find that you had some coaches that you couldn't build off their energy or you found difficult to work with, and how did you navigate those challenges?
Yeah, like there's definitely some coaches that maybe you just don't understand fully like their coaching philosophy.
Mm,
Um, and it's hard, but I think just being able to tolerate them and having a relationship enough that keeps both of you guys you're still able to work with each other,
right.
because obviously they are a position of authority over you, and they're here for your betterment. So, um, yeah, I think just continuing to stay in my own head, like not letting them, affect how I play or anything like that. Even at Brock, I took about 2 years to kind of get used to my head coach, and there's nothing wrong with her. We have a great relationship now. So I think there's always something to look forward to, even though, it might not look like it at the beginning.
Mm,
You can always work and build a relationship that can last for years. And I think, Margot and I are at the point now where if I had questions about coaching further down the road, she'd be more than happy to help me. So um, I think just not giving up on that relationship and continuing to try to build it,
right.
but also not letting it affect your game and just staying on the straight and narrow. So
That's a good way of putting it. I think you really highlighted looking at the positives of a lot of those relationships, and at the end of the day, you guys are all looking to be put together a successful team on the ice and obviously win as many games as possible. And I think that's the underlying that's a starting point of building that mutual respect that will later grow and foster into a deeper connection. Now, for you, obviously, I kind of want to pivot a little bit, just some of the progression that you've had. So you grew up, you were mentioning earlier, just a little bit, you're just outside Kingston. Um, was it like a double A, triple A system kind of that you're playing in? Where you, and then did you just kind of work your way through the ranks to get to Brock? I just kind of want to highlight a little bit about how you actually ended up on the Brock Badgers women hockey team. Oh, all good. Hello. Oh, maybe we're. Oh,
Yeah, so I started my career.
Go ahead. Sorry, my
Can you hear me
connection
or
totally
no?
cut out. It's all good.
Oh, oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, we're good. We're good. Sorry, all connections. It's all good.
So yeah, I started my career in Napanee.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the Napanee Crunch is a female organization in town, and then when I got to minor Pee Wee, then I went to Belleville to play because Napanee only had hockey up to the double B level,
Okay.
and I was kind of at the point where unfortunately, I had to pick whether I wanted to play at a higher level and kind of leave some of my friends behind that were just they just loved hockey just to play it.
Right.
They didn't have any like aspirations further. Um, so yeah, I went to Belleville. I played double A there for a couple years, and then went back to Napanee because we got granted the opportunity to have a double A team for the year.
Nice.
So we kind of joined a couple of organizations together and played out in Napanee. And then post that year, I went to Kingston. Kingston's the closest team to me that has a junior program. I went to Kingston for a couple years in midget double A. AP'd for the junior Ice Wolves in my second year midget, and that kind of just funneled into um, playing junior for the last 2 years of my career. Um, they have a phenomenal program there. They're constantly looking to highlight their players and really get them connected with schools and giving them every opportunity to approach schools, whether that be at the OUA level or the U Sport or NCAA level.
Mm,
Um, so I think there's so many opportunities there, and I'm extremely lucky and grateful for the coaching staff that I had there and the connections that they brought to me. Um, so that's kind of where I started the obviously U18 and juniors kind of when you start your recruitment process. If obviously you're looking to go um, do that, but yeah, so I started um, in U18. I started to get a few connections to schools, but it wasn't really until junior that I started talking to them more and seeing them obviously at those big tournaments like Stony Creek and the Two Nations Cup, big scouting zones. So,
mm,
um, yeah, I think the recruitment process for girls hockey is pretty crazy. If there's a school that you want to go to, but maybe they haven't reached out to you, like there's a lot of girls that will send video or whatever and show their interest. So sometimes you have to advocate for yourself. Sometimes it doesn't just fall in your lap. So yeah, I had a couple schools from Canada reach out to me, and I had a few schools from the States as well. But I think I was I'm such a homebody that I didn't even really care about the states ones.
mm.
Which looking back now, I'm kind of like, well, maybe I could have further exhausted that route just to see where I would be now. But I don't regret a single thing. I'm glad I stayed in Canada. I'm glad I stayed home. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my recruitment process, and I committed in a Kitchener tournament to Brock. So
Nice. That's awesome. Well, obviously, it's a unique process, and that's why I wanted to ask about it. The other athlete we had on here, Hunter Thompson, he's a D1 golfer down in Michigan, and obviously he's Canadian. And he just kind of highlighted, why he wanted to go to the States, but obviously for you, you wanted to stay home, closer to Canada. You mentioned, looking back on it, you would have maybe thought about going down, to the States.
yep.
So you're mentioning, you would have exercised, you thought about you should maybe exercise like going look down to the States. Do you think now it is at this point now, I think what you're in your fourth year, I believe, right? If
Yeah.
you're to extend eligibility, would you ever think about, if you're to look into going into a new program, would you think about now going down to the States, or is that an option that's just not possible?
That's not really an option. You see more of it happen where girls come from the States to U Sport.
Mm, okay.
Um, so we've had a few transfers in recent years come from the NCAA, and either they're done their program there, and with the COVID pandemic that happened, girls were able to they were granted another year of eligibility. So if you were part of U Sport during the COVID pandemic, then you got 1 year added on to your 5 years of eligibility.
Nice.
Or in the States, it's strictly four, but those girls got granted a fifth year.
Hmm.
So we had actually a goalie come down from LIU, who finished her a couple years eligibility left with us.
Right.
And then obviously in recent years we had Jenna Dort come from Colgate and finish and is planning to finish her years off at Brock. But yeah, it's more common that you see girls come from the States
Mm.
to Canada to finish their eligibility rather than the other way around.
And is that's strictly tied to the fact that you get an extra year of eligibility, mainly at least from COVID?
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And now, like, I guess too, looking back, like, just like some of your friends who, obviously, like you just mentioned Jenna playing D1. Did you find that it was a lot really common for, when you're coming out of 18U to look down? Did a lot of girls want to go play in the States, like people that you're familiar with, or were there many like you, like-minded, that wanted to stay home in Canada?
The girls that I played with, like there was a bunch of us that stayed in Canada and went the U Sports route.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's obviously like when you go to NCAA, there's way more attraction to it. In terms of like when you're done your post secondary career, like there's way more opportunity that will come from you having D1 beside your name compared to U Sports beside your name.
Right.
Um, Especially now with the PWHL, like it's just kind of more of a picking pool. It comes from the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a top player there, then obviously you're kind of more on the radar for scouts in the draft for the PWHL. Um, but yeah, it with girls hockey, it starts so young, getting your name out there. So like for us in Canada, like if you're part of the U16 OWHAs and that kind of thing, like those programs really propel you further because um, yeah, it's just a picking pool for all of a sudden the U18 women's worlds teams and then the national women's team and the development team. So I think the the more you have your eyes set on NCAA and D1, the more opportunities you typically get. But U Sports, I think, is kind of looked over, um, but it's great hockey, and
Mm-hmm.
we've seen that now. The OUA is a strong loop. So yeah, I think girls underestimate it, but it is still high pace, fast hockey.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think, and the OUA did expand a little bit this year, I believe, right? So they've added, I think, a few more schools, like Carleton, for example, which is obviously great to see. And obviously, correct me if I'm wrong on that. To my knowledge, I think I'm right with that one.
Yeah.
It's, do you have a thought as to why U Sports may be actually overlooked? Like I find in just in sport in general, and what we learn in the sport management program is, we learn a lot about it. We learn a little less about the NCAA. I think that's granted to us being in Canada for itself. But when you just think of a sporting atmosphere, like you're never seeing highlights of U Sport athletes on social media nearly as much, right? You wouldn't see anything on ESPN or Sports Center. It's very rare, very difficult to make it. Do you think that there's a specific reason why that is, or like could it be like a skill, or is it just like basically less of a public awareness?
Yeah, I think it's just less of a public awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It's a money thing too. Like those NCAA sports and schools, they have so many alumni that donate to their programs. I think like the yeah, it's less in the public's eye. I think it's overlooked because D1 has always been made out to be like that's the spot to be. Um, and rightfully so. Like there are a lot of incredible athletes that have come out of programs from the NCAA and D1 programs. So I mean, uh, I think a lot more girls are realizing now that OUA is and U Sport is still at a high level hockey, and it's nothing to be overlooked or ashamed to play. So yeah, I think it's getting a little more traction now, which is nice to see, and especially now as teams joined our league, um, that kind of growth is happening. So
No, it is. It's great to see it grow, and I think it's only going to continue to do so. Especially, I think there'll be more funding throughout the years, right? And I think it might be unrealistic for U Sport to ever catch up to NCAA from a funding perspective, or from, just the popularity of it, right? The NCAA is very, based on what we've seen, is so entertainment based, especially from like let's say college football standpoint. Whereas U Sport, what I've learned recently is there's a lot of active really people are looking forward to protecting athletes and making sure they're getting the best right experience for them. There's different rules about even like such things as fan engagement, which may also limit youth sports and the traction it may get publicly as well. But let's take a look here quickly. Just I want to go over what an average week looks like for you as a student athlete. Obviously, being on a Brock hockey team is it's very physically demanding, but I would also suspect very mentally demanding. Can you run us through a week, how many practices, lifts you guys do, and then how you also balance that with school as well?
yeah, so we lift 3 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and then we're on the ice every single day. So it just depends on when our games fall on a particular week, but typically, Monday we do split session skills, so half our team's on in the morning, half our team's on in the afternoon. We're very grateful to have Mike McDonald. He's on the bench this year full time as our lead assistant coach, and he has his own skills development called True Stride.
Mm,
So he runs that out of the kind of the greater Niagara area. But he's a great hockey mind. He brings in a lot for us, and kind of just a new skill set. So yeah, Mondays are skills. That's a lot of fun. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, typically normal practice unless we play Fridays. Um, but day before game, we always just have kind of pregame skate, so just a light kind of flush your legs, feel the puck.
mm,
And then typically play either Friday, Saturday or Friday, Sunday, sometimes Saturday, Sunday. Um, but yeah, it's a lot, but we all love it and we're kind of just so used to it now.
mm,
Um, as for balancing school with that, obviously that schedule is pretty demanding.
right.
And I think there's a lot of girls in our team that their school schedule is also demanding. We have a few in kind of like the sciences and stuff like that. So they don't get much of a break, but I think just, allotting time and being good with your time management helps a lot with that. We're on the ice typically our time slots like 2 to 5, so anywhere kind of in there. And then our lifts are 12 to 1. So we have a lot of the morning. If you don't have morning class, obviously you have a lot of the morning to kind of prep, do any bit of studying or school that you have, and then we're kind of booked up for about 4 or 5 hours in the afternoon. Um, but a lot of us, we're lucky enough at Canada Games Park to have kind of our
Right.
our own little study room for just us hockey players. So a lot of girls will have their laptops with them, and we just kind of uh, have a little chat sesh and social hour, and eat our lunches and stuff, and do some school. So yeah, we're a pretty tight knit group, and we're really lucky to have that uh, available to us at the rink. But yeah, just kind of taking any time that you have. A lot of girls, do a lot of studying on road trips on buses. So just kind of any downtime that we do have,
Mm-hmm.
we're opening the laptop as much as we can just to stay balanced and make sure that the student part of the student athlete life is being fulfilled.
Yeah, no, love that. I mean, I think it's a lot of pressure to do it. I mean, there's so many weeks where I feel like I'm completely swamped, but then I also kind of think about, people that are balancing, let's say 2 degrees, and then there's people like yourselves who are athletes who are always, they have
Yeah.
to dedicate that 4 to 5 hour block almost every day, to work on their skills or to go to practice, to do lifts and such. One thing you mentioned there a little bit too was the tight knit group of a team. Obviously, that's something that's super important and that builds the chemistry, how you guys play on the ice. Do you guys ever do a lot of like say social gatherings outside of practice? Do you guys do a lot of team dinners? Like I find team culture is incredibly important, at least for, when I played sports. Obviously, I know you're in a house with girls on the team, which probably helps, and you get a lot to hang out with them and stuff. do you guys do a lot of things outside of, practice and stuff as a team? And is that something that you guys start up, or is that something that your coach kind of makes you guys do and leads?
Yeah, so we're together pretty much 24/7, whether that be as a full group or there's at least a bunch of us hanging out at the time. But anything that we do is always full invite to our entire team.
Mm-hmm.
It's never mandatory at all. We definitely do have some things that are mandatory, like typically during like training camp or like reading week, that kind of thing, where school is not heavy. We'll typically do like a team potluck, or we had like a team breakfast one time. So we try to do as many team activities as we can. Um, but yeah, I think everybody feels comfortable, which is the main thing.
Right.
Um, and yeah, we're all willing to help each other, and we all know that we have 25 teammates that are there that we can lean on for support and guidance. So I think that that team culture piece is extremely important, especially in a sport that is, our entire it's for the entire school year essentially, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
together. So yeah, that's the big thing, is keeping the culture strong and making sure that we're all there for to support each other, and yeah, just having each other in our back pocket all the time.
Love that. I love that the strong bond, and I think not always being around each other is super important, and obviously provide some flexibility options for such events to not always be mandatory, right? Because sometimes some people may need their time to themselves, and that could also go to time to work on their school or whichever other things you've got going on. Given now that is your fourth year, so coming up to your last year, right, you're in sport management. Do you have any future plans? Are you thinking of continue trying to play hockey? Extend any eligibility everywhere? I know we kind of touched on that to see if it was a possibility. What are your plans, following your time at Brock, if you have any?
Yeah, so I've been thinking it's coming up. So I've had to kind of think about it a little bit more recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think me personally, I think I would be upset with myself if I didn't use my last year of eligibility.
Yeah.
Um, I love hockey, so I can't imagine wasting that final year and saying that at least I didn't try to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I've definitely thought about extending my year eligibility and extending school into my fifth year, coming back to Brock and playing. So I think I haven't told anybody, but now it's on the record that I probably am going to come back.
Exciting. Look at
Um,
that.
but yeah, so in my third year, I switched into social sciences.
Oh, okay.
So I was in sport management, and then I liked it, but I wanted to post graduation, whether that be this year or next year. Um, I wanted to go into my electrician's apprenticeship.
Oh, okay.
So I'm probably going to go into the trades after this. But next year, if I do come back, then I'll probably look into going back into sport management and finishing my degree
Yeah.
for that as well.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I think if an opportunity comes my way to stay within the sporting community, then I'll absolutely take that. Like that was my first dream. So I mean, I think my resume is decent right now. That if uh, just because I don't have a full sport management degree currently, I think that would be still an option for me,
Right.
and one that I wouldn't pass up.
100% no, and I think as well as an athlete too, you know enough about hockey as a sport, and you've also done some work outside of school in the sporting field, which is through your like MC11 development program, which I do want to touch on here in a little bit. And sorry, I had no prior knowledge that you had switched programs, and also apologize if we spoiled your big announcement, but you
That's all
said
right.
you may extend, so we'll leave it as a may. So if you want to break any news of any kind to your team, that obviously can be done for yourself. But let's talk a little bit about your hockey development program. I just kind of want to know a little bit more about it. Is this something that, now you did mention going into trades maybe down the road. Is this something, this program that you just do in the summer while you've got more time, just a way to give back to the community, obviously to get some work experience? And is that something that you could see yourself kind of doing for multiple years, even post graduation?
Yeah, I think once I graduate, that'll be kind of one of my sole focuses. So when I move back home, I've always been kind of big on giving back to my community. Like we're a really small town, everybody knows each other,
Love it.
and it's something that I've loved so much growing up. Um, and I've started to kind of give back uh, in my teens. Um, so I've coached a couple teams on the baseball side and the hockey side, and I've worked with Mike Hartwick, who was kind of my first mentor in terms of the skills development aspect. He runs his own company called All Heart Hockey out in Apney, um, and I've worked with him since I was 14, and kind of just built myself up the ranks as I've gotten older. Um, and he's kind of showed me the ropes, and I'm super grateful for him. But I think with MC11, because of my work that I'm hopefully going to do, I think it'll be more of a summer thing for sure, kind of running camps. And then I think if I'm going to run it during the hockey season, I would look to go to the Kingston and the Belleville minor hockey girls associations, and just see how I can give back as an alum of those organizations, because they obviously did so much for me growing up as well. So I think that's kind of the plan right now, but things can change.
No, I absolutely love it. And I think it's great that you do want to give back to the community. At the end of the day, I think as you've been mentioning kind of throughout this episode of how big of an impact it's made on, who you've not only become, but also as an athlete, right? And as just like personal and career progression as well. And I think that's something only the future can tell. And wherever you end up, I'm sure you'll do with absolute great success. Now that I'm kind of thinking of just a little bit in the future. I always love, asking guests to give a big piece of advice that they would give to people who, for yourself as a student athlete, what you would suggest is a good piece of advice from either career or, like playing perspective. What big piece of advice maybe you could be even focused on how you balance the school and hockey life world. What big piece of advice would you give to young people looking to continue playing or working in sport?
Yeah. Um, Maybe this is cliche, but just trying to find the joy in the grind. Like at times it can be heavy, it can be a lot. It's mentally taxing, emotionally draining. But I always go back to, remember why you're doing it. Remember why you started playing in the first place. Um, and you have to enjoy it while you can, because, time flies and it's gone before you know it. So enjoy it, take every opportunity that comes your way, and just run with it. It's something so little, but it's something so big in the grand scheme of things, and that goes for anything in life. If you love it, it'll love you back. So um, I think just really sinking in and feeling every moment, just living in the present, is the biggest thing always.
Wow. I mean, I love that piece of advice. I think that's deep and it's very interpersonal, which is great. And I think, you're kind of mentioning a bit about the grind and work. If you love the work, it'll love you back. And I think work never, in jobs that I've loved has never felt actually like work because I like what I'm doing. I dread an essay because I particularly don't like writing an essay. But if it's actually turns into, let's say, a paper that I'm passionate about, for example, it's actually amazing how quickly and how well you could actually do because of that level of care, but also that level of passion that you put into your work. But with that being said, Maddie, I think we'll wrap this one up. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was an amazing episode. It's great to learn more about you and your hockey career. And I'm super excited to see what the future holds for you, whether that's the extra year of eligibility that you'll take up, or if that's something of just continuing finishing out your degrees. But thank you again for your time today. We really appreciate it.
No, that was fun, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, well, guys, we'll all see you next week for another amazing episode. Stay tuned because we've got some big announcements just around the corner. But thank you guys and have a great rest of your week.